When it comes to Remedy, Max Payne is always the first thing that pours into my head. I don't usually replay games, but I have returned to this particular masterpiece, well, probably at least 5 times. Fortunately, Remedy isn't a one-hit wonder studio, but it's only now, more than 15 years after its release, that I finally got around to their second legendary title, Alan Wake. To take a little detour, I actually started playing Alan Wake because, while binge watching Stranger Things, I realized I was in the mood for a solid horror game. And what better choice than something from the absolute kings of story-driven action games? Plus, it goes for dirt cheap all the time, so why not give it a shot? To tell you the truth, I wasn't exactly thrilled with the game at first. I was expecting something like Max Payne in a horror guise, but after playing for a bit, running out of ammo, and naively hoping I would find some more around the corner, I realized that the best way to progress is to simply harass past everyone if possible. So instead of wiping out tons of enemies, it turned out I would be running for my life from tons of enemies. Fortunately, it's not as bad once you get used to the game's mechanics and learn how not to waste ammo. In the end, the action-heavy destruction blends quite nicely with the action-heavy fleeing. What really sucks though is that ammo is scarce and you never know what's waiting for you. For instance, at one point I had a shotgun with a few shells left when two standard enemies attacked me. Wanting to get past them as quickly as possible, I blasted them away. Great, but a moment later a boss showed up. Needless to say, trying to take him down with a weak little pistol was no walk in the park. Luckily, you can back out of almost every fight. Once you master the flashlight controls, you can frequently retreat into safe havens, randomly placed streetlights that enemies can't get past. It's not always easy, but it's a lifesaver. Speaking of controls, I have to have a quick complaint sessions. To be honest, I usually hate first-person games. Lara Croft felt completely unplayable to me, both in the terms. By the end of the game, for example, I still hadn't figured out how to run in a straight line. At first, it was an absolute nightmare because the character walked pretty much whatever he pleased. You can get used to it, but when you need to sprint and jump over a gap or navigate a narrowed walkway, you will find yourself slamming your desk, wondering why the hell this guy can't just walk straight instead of stumbling around like he's drunk. Though, yeah, to be fair, the issue may also be the user error between the keyboard and the chair. Let's face it though, you can survive clunky controls and low ammo, but for a game like this to work, it needs a powerful story. And this is where Remedy absolutely knocked it out of the park. Alan Wake is a famous writer suffering from psychological issues. Throughout the entire game, you never really know if you are awake or dreaming. The whole story takes place around the small town of Bright Falls and the nearby Cauldron Lake. Right from the start, when you hit someone with your car and he mysteriously vanished, followed shortly by your girlfriend disappearing. While shadowy figures attack you from all sides, you have no idea what's real and what isn't. At first, it seems like it's all in your head, but over time, it turns out the other townsfolk are starting to experience the madness too. And what is your actual mission? Find your girlfriend. And it's definitely not easy. The game is split into 6 chapters and you start from scratch at the beginning of each one. So, if you are planning to hoard your beast arsenal for the choice bosses, you can forget about it right now. The moment you see a heavy enemy, just blow them to pieces with the flare gun. In the beginning, the game is quite repetitive. You walk through narrow forest corridors, get ambushed by a shadow figure every few minutes, and repeat the process until you finally reach a gas station to call the police. Unfortunately, it turns out your girlfriend was kidnapped by some weirdo, so you have to go rescue her. Unsurprisingly, it's not going to be that simple. you will have to fight your way through some really cool locations such as abandoned mines, a local farm, a psychiatric clinic and its gardens, a ghost town, a power plant, and many more. The core gameplay loop remains the same, though you navigate relatively linear corridors where enemies constantly jump out at you. And what kind of enemies are we talking about? On one hand, we have various types of ghosts, the Taken, who are mostly variations of the same blueprint. Your standard lumberjack with an axe, a big guy with a chainsaw, and a super fast enemy who is incredibly annoying because you can't lock your target properly. What they all have in common is that they need to get close to hurt you. They don't use firearms. Then there are the birds, which will jump scare you from time to time. They don't do much damage, but in the ensuing chaos, it's easy to fall off a ledge. Lastly, there are the flying possessed objects, and those are a massive pain. Getting hit by a flying car takes away half your health instantly. In those moments, you just have to hide behind something that isn't capable of flight. Most of the time, you are on your own, but occasionally you get some help. Throughout the story, you are accompanied by your agent and friend Barry. He is a bit of a nutcase, but towards the end of the game, he and a local cop manage to save your skin. Since they are immortal NPCs, there is no better strategy than baiting enemies towards them to save your own ammo. Yeah, totally coward tactics, I know. Unfortunately, the game sometimes throws a wrench into the gears, like having you fall out of a helicopter, forcing you to catch up to your buddies on foot, but at least the helicopter uses its searchlight to guide you and help you push through the hordes. As for the weapons, there aren't many, and you constantly have to make compromises on what to carry. The flashlight, your absolute, indispensable best friend. Without it, you are completely helpless. If you don't burn off an enemy's shield of darkness first, you can pump all your ammo into them and they will just low at you. You will spend most of your time with the revolver because ammo for it is, let's say, reasonably available. The shotgun, soft-off shotgun, and hunting rifle are luxuries you only stumble upon occasionally. Plus, you can only carry one long gun at a time. If you choose the rifle and then find shotgun shells along the way, you are just out of luck. Your arsenal also includes flares to keep enemies at bay, flashbangs, which cause serious devastation, and, most importantly, the flare gun. In any other game, a flare gun would be a joke, but here it's like a mini BFG 10K. For those who don't know, it is an ultimate gun from Doom, capable of vaporizing a whole crowd of enemies at once. If the base game isn't enough for you, you can pick up 2 shorter DLC expansions, both taking an hour or 2 to beat. The Signals brings almost nothing new to the table. Even the locations are recycled since it takes place inside a dreamscape or memory. At one point, you can even choose your own difficulty. If you use your flashlight to avoid the floating words scattered around, you don't have to fight at all because shining light on a certain word spawns the enemies into reality. The writer is much better, though it may be a bit too psychedelic for some. Anyway, it focuses less on combat and more on the narrative. There isn't much point in discussing the graphics or audio. Both show their age, though a remastered version exists now. I played the original, and visually, it didn't offend me at all. Everything looked nice. What is worth mentioning, however, is the cinematic presentation. The developers really went all out. The cutscenes are excellent and make the thick atmosphere even heavier. And since the devs have a great sense of humor, Max Payne even makes a cameo on a TV screen near the end. So, what are the pros? Intriguing concept, phenomenal atmosphere, and can be bought for a song nowadays. And the cons? Somewhat repetitive combat and clunky character controls. And that will be all for today. Have you ever played Alan Wake? If so, share your experience with us in the comments below, and if not, you have some catching up to do. So, Take care, and next time we will finally dive into something very old school to see if KK has aged like a fine wine or turned into an undrinkable sludge. So, see you next time.